Just reminded me.
It takes a village, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on cabinet reports and updates.
So our only cabinet report tonight, actually, no, I do have, I have Jody's bit. Jody is out sick, so I'm going to do hers, but Andrea will can go first.
Would you like me to go right now?
Hold on just a second. Let me share it. Okay, go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to update on a few things that are going on at the elementary school. As you know, we do band and choir, and that is the only after-school activity right now that we're able to provide transportation for. We have these two clubs starting, community service and STEM, which are, and of course, we have student council. There is no transportation for them, but some of the advisors, they're offering it if kids can participate, if feasible, through remote. So when they get home, even though they can't physically be in school, at least they can still participate for part of the group. Amanda Chauvin is getting ready to start her art club, which is always, as you guys know, very, very, very popular. But at the same time, we have to keep it at 12 students. So she'll be sending out a letter to do one of 4-week stints in January, because she is going to be going out on a medical leave. She's having foot surgery. So she'll do a 4-week stint in January with her first art club and more when she comes back. We are doing the week of code. It's typically been called the hour of code or day of code, but we are kind of dragging it out a week. And we had a parent that Mr. Falco got to present to the kindergarten through 6th grade to talk about computers and programming. And he is at RPI. He did a nice presentation to all the students. And one thing that's also pretty popular at Dwaynesburg that we didn't want to see go was the spelling bee. Having been in touch with Script Spelling Bee, it is actually able to offer it via online. And I just started setting it up today, and some newsletters will be going home to families in 3rd through 8th on how they can sign their children up to participate in the virtual spelling bee. And even when they get to the Proctor's version, that might very well be online as well. So it'll be good practice to get any of our candidates that make it that far, or candidate, excuse me, that makes it that far, to be familiar with that platform of how to do a spelling bee online. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So I did ask Jody to have somebody from the science department. I think Melissa's the representative to talk about Gizmo Labs. And Melissa, do you have anything to show, or are you just going to talk to us about it? Oh, you're muted.
It never fails. I do that every day with my kids too, and they have to tell me the same thing, usually in the chat.
That's the motto of 2020. 2020.
I think so. So what I thought I'd do is actually show you a Gizmo Lab. Hopefully I can do this correctly. Last year, I think Mr. Rivenberg actually secured a grant for the science department. And so with the pandemic and kind of thinking of what were we going to do for labs for students, we found this company, Explore Learning, and they have online simulations of labs, and they call them Gizmo Labs. And so I'm just going to try to show you guys an example of a Gizmo Lab. I can get this going. Come on. All right, so hopefully you guys can see that. Can you see the Regents Chemistry Periodic Trends Lab?
No, are you able to present, to click the present now? Do you have that?
I do, and I thought, okay, maybe, do I have to have permission from you to do that?
I don't know.
Can only be one presenter at a time. That could be the issue. Is anything else still being presented or no?
I stopped presenting. Wait, let me see.
Maybe.
So
How about,
I think that you're able to do it.
well, I should be showing you. It tells me I'm sharing this with you, but I don't know.
Here
if
it comes.
Something's
It's
happening.
coming.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, okay, maybe it's a little slow. So this is actually an example of a Gizmo lab that my students in chemistry did today. We're studying the periodic table and periodic trends. And so this is a typical Gizmo lab. And so right here, the heading of it, all students have to do is click on that. Hopefully. Come on. Not gonna cooperate for me for some reason. Come on. There we go. And that opens the Gizmo. And I'll take a bit. And students were given a login and a password, and so they are able to log in. It's going to take a little bit. And this is mine, so I'm going to, oh, come on. And so they launch the Gizmo. Come on, sorry. I don't know, maybe I should just, can you see this? It's spinning.
It's coming, yep.
Okay. So basically what it does is they are assigned a Google Docs, which I showed you before. And the Google Doc is basically the lab, and it's very straightforward, step by step, takes the students through what they're supposed to do. For example, you know, one of the questions today was they measure the atomic radius, because atomic radii is a periodic trend. And so they are given instructions to do certain things. This is the ruler, for example, and they're told how atomic radii are measured, and they can manipulate it. And they fill in a data table and answer questions. They're asked to make predictions and things like that. We've had really positive responses from both teachers and students. And we really like this program. Again, because we can't do our typical lab exercises, we wanted to come up with something that would give kids the opportunity to see some concepts that we talk about in class illustrated in some way. And we found that the Explore Learning, the Gizmo Labs, does a really nice job of taking students step by step. And they're able to do it independently at home, because a lot of our students are remote. You know, they've been able to be successful at completing these labs and understanding the concepts that we want them to do. And they are fairly well aligned with our curriculum. So we're very happy with that. So that's Gizmos. Let's see. I don't know if you want to see anything more about Gizmos, but if you have any questions about Gizmos, I'd be happy to answer them.
What other kinds of labs have you been able to do with this, Melissa?
Oh, okay. Well, 7 through 12, actually, I've done physics labs. My transitional living environment has done scientific labs. We've done an element builder. I've done an atomic mass lab with my chemistry students. I know in 7th grade, they've done a density lab. They just did a chemical reaction lab in 7th grade that showed them explosions. 7th graders all love that. And I know that Mrs. Hildenbrandt and Mr. Jenkins are all using it. So it's been pretty successful. We've also, because the subscription is for math and science, we pass that information on to our math department, and they have been using it as well. So, you know, we wanted all students to get the benefit from the subscription. So it's really been, I think, a good addition, and something that's really helped us in our current learning situation.
Are there dissection labs too, Melissa?
I honestly, I haven't checked to see if there are, but I know they have an awful lot. So I can't tell you about the dissection ones, but I'm sure there are because they have everything under the sun.
Well, thank you so much for coming in at short notice to share that with us.
Not a problem.
Very difficult and challenging thing to do is to do labs over a distance. And I think it's awesome that people are finding all these creative ways to still provide that to kids. Jody also wanted to share a couple things about fine arts. So in the Spanish department, they've been doing lessons where they arrange a story time with elementary students about stories that they have written. Andrea, you don't have any information about that, do you?
Not yet, but they reached out a little bit to me about it last year, and I think it's awesome just to get that little immersion into some Spanish.
I had the opportunity to see the next one, which was a PE unit. So PE is doing a unit on where they did like live action foosball, where students actually worked as a table. So they're in their distanced, they're socially distanced circles, and they kind of move from circle to circle in the same way that like you would move if you were attached to a pole. And so I thought that was a super creative way to deal with some of the obstacles that we have. So I'm really interested to see like how many of these things stand the test of time and will be used again, even though we're using them by necessity right now. I think foosball is pretty cool. I also wanted to share with you that the PBIS team has been working to provide another PBIS day, which is scheduled for December 23rd. And so this is going to be a holiday lunch, and students are going to participate in a bunch of activities around goals and thankfulness. And students are going to be able to participate in this whether they're remote or in person, just as they did the last time. And then also Student Council is organizing a Spirit Week that's going to run from December 14th to December 23rd. So kind of a holiday Spirit Week. And those are our reports.
Thank you. So next on our agenda, we have the privilege of the floor or public comment. Do we have anyone present who would like to address the board at this time? Okay, going once, going twice. Moving on to superintendent's report and update.
Okay, so I want to update you about a couple of things. One is our plan for testing should we be told that we're in one of these colored microcluster zones. So it seems like that guidance on microcluster zones is changing a lot. And that's because when we started doing this, there were only a few places in the state that were really at this point. And now what we're finding is that there's only a few places in the state that aren't at points that had been designated microcluster zones. So like the goalpost has been pushed farther away. So even though Schenectady County, I think, was at 6.9% the last time I looked, which seems really high considering where we started off the year, which was under 2%, under 1%. And so even though we're that high, we're actually doing better than most of the state. So really the North Country and the Capital Region are doing pretty well. The Finger Lakes is right now one of the most rapidly rising areas, the Rochester area. And so things are bad all over. And so what's happened is that there were some changes recently to not the yellow plan, but the orange and red. So I just wanted to explain that quickly. So we do have our tests in. We have enough people who've consented to be tested in schools to do our random testing of 20% of in-person people. And 20% is 65 people in the elementary school and 56 people in the high school right now. And so if we are named in a yellow zone, the rules are that 2-week period of testing begins immediately. So we have 2 weeks to test 20% in each building. And if at the end of that 2-week period, our results are lower than the 7-day rolling average in our region, then we don't have to test anymore. If we're at or above that rate, then we have to continue testing 20% every 2 weeks until we've tested 100% of our in-person population. Okay, so that's yellow zone. Orange zone did change. So what changed about orange zones and red zones is that there was formerly a period of time where schools had a mandatory 4-day shutdown. And there was also a mandatory order to test 100% of the in-person people who would be coming back into school. So 100% of students in person, 100% of staff in person before you even open back up again. And so that is not feasible. And so the state realized that that wasn't feasible either. And so has taken away that requirement to test 100% of population and close down for 4 days. And the reason why they did that is because they have found out what we know, which is that schools are among the safest places to be right now. And so to close down schools might put more people at risk. So even though it's counterintuitive, actually having kids in school lowers the rate of infection. And so if we are named to be in an orange zone, we have a month to test 20% of our population in school, in both buildings. So the same as in a yellow zone. And even though it's orange, and you would think that that is like, I don't know, more scary, it's actually, we have more time to test in an orange zone situation than in a yellow zone. We have a month instead of a 2-week period. And I think that's just because they haven't gotten around to changing the yellow zone yet. And then there's actually a certain percentage that you have to be under to stay open. There's also a minimum number that would close you down. So if we test and there's 9 or more positive people in a building, then that building shuts down. So if I would say that as a district, if there's 9 or more, we would probably shut down at that point, because that would be a pretty alarming thing for us. Then in a red zone, what changes is just that you now have to test 30% of your in-person population over the course of a month. Same closure rules. So if you have like a spike in school, you got to close down. And so I think that these are reasonable conditions. Our nurses feel comfortable testing this many people in this amount of time. They're familiar now with the testing tools, the Binax rapid test. It's a very quick test. It takes about 15 minutes to get a result. It takes about 20 seconds to actually administer the test to somebody. And they feel comfortable with it. So it looks like this microcluster strategy isn't going to be a thing that causes us to go remote as a district after all. So I sent out a communication last week just to tell people that there's a change and this is the change. And so it looks like we're going to be able to stay open on the whole, but maybe still occasionally quarantine small pockets of people in different areas. I want everybody to know too that just because a class gets quarantined doesn't mean that there's a serious problem. So we're doing those things to prevent things like that from happening. By and large, there's only been one situation where we've actually had to quarantine classes. Generally, we're able to get by with just doing 1 or 2 people who had close contact. And also, I'll say that if parents keep doing what they're doing and keeping kids home when they're sick, generally by the time they find out their results, it's been too long to really effectively quarantine people anyway. And so people don't end up getting quarantined if a student's been out of school for a few days prior to being diagnosed with COVID. So we're doing well Unfortunately, doing well also means that sometimes we're going to have positive cases and quarantines. But we're learning how to do this quicker. People in the offices and in the nurse's office are being very helpful in assisting the Department of Health in their contact tracing. I really can't say enough about how everybody's pulled together to do this the right way. Like I was down in the, I'll say this even if it has the potential to embarrass folks, but I was down in the maintenance office today, and so I sent out that consent form as an electronic form. And I don't want to stereotype all maintenance people, but I'll say that there are a few people on our maintenance staff that are less than comfortable with technology, and so they were all in the maintenance office today, taking turns, getting some assistance, filling out that form to provide consent. And when I asked why, they said, "Hey, boss, we're gonna do this so we can stay open because we'd like to work." And so I can't say enough about the people that have agreed to allow us to do this weird thing that we've never asked people to do before, and hopefully never have to ask people to do again. But I'm thankful that they're willing to help us stay open. So thanks to parents and everybody who so rapidly responded to that call to help out. I also wanted to give you an update on something that's been hanging out for kind of a long time, and that's the 6th grade location. And so this has been a process, and I just shared with the education committee like the process that I took to decide whether or not we would move 6th grade back to the high school, which had been the process. I think those of you on the board know the history of the 6th grade moving down to the elementary school, and then the suggestion that the 6th grade would then move back up to the high school. So in addition to reviewing the history, I also reviewed some research on middle school best practice, engaged in some focus groups with stakeholders, and did some data analysis on how the 6th grade's actually been doing since they've been in the elementary school. And then also just determine some goals of things that we actually want to achieve. So regardless of a move, what we want to achieve is greater proficiency in our middle school. And also, whether the 6th grade moves or not, the communication between 6th grade and 7th grade has to improve. It's pretty good, and that's based on the professionalism of some teachers who have made that happen. But as a system, we haven't put things in place to make sure that 6th grade teachers can communicate with 7th grade teachers in a way that fits into their schedules. Also, one other thing that we would like to do, regardless of where the 6th grade is begin some middle school requirements in 6th grade. So things like facts and technology are things that need to start happening in 6th grade to support those programs, and also to expose kids to some things they really need to know about before they get to 7th grade. And then the other thing that we know we need to do is both support the kind of social, emotional well-being of our 6th grade students, while at the same time promoting academic rigor. And so we have this kind of balance that we have to look at, because we know that the elementary school is probably the right social and emotional place for 6th graders, but the junior senior high school is probably the right place to promote that academic rigor. So there's pros for both places. My feeling, though, after doing all this analysis, is that a geographic change of 6th grade is not going to accomplish anything that we really want to achieve just in and of itself. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen to improve 6th grade. And so my suggestion is that we, in fact, wouldn't move 6th grade, but we'd keep it where it is right now, and work on the 6th grade program first. So when we get to the place where we've improved these things as much as possible, then it's maybe something to go back and look at. But here are the things that we're really going to focus on as a stakeholder group that's working on this project of improving 6th grade specifically, but middle school in general. So one solution is to bring down the counseling program into 6th grade. I think this could have a lot of benefits for 6th grade students, both with from the counseling aspect, but also from the career development perspective. And so we've talked to counselors about making time to be in the elementary school with 6th graders next year to provide that support. Another thing that we really need to work on is our transitional activities. So 6th grade is a keystone transitional year. You have to transition into 6th grade, and then you have to transition from 6th grade into 7th grade. And then we also have to pay special attention to that transition from 8th into 9th grade. So all of these connective tissue pieces are critical. And so even though they seem like things that you could do without, you need to be able to provide that connective tissue in order for things to really work. So we need to spend some time making sure our transitions are really effective. Another thing that I'd like to work on is some kind of program in which people from the middle school and high school can interact with our 6th grade students. So possibly a high school mentorship type program, so that 6th graders can interact with some older students, which I think is a big benefit of them being in the high school. But also to the extent where we can then say, thank you, high schoolers, for coming here and volunteering for this program. Now you may go back to your own building so that we can focus on the 6th grade social and emotional support that needs to happen in the elementary school building. Also, looking at creating more joint events, times when we can bus the 6th graders up to the middle school to participate in things like PBIS days and other activities that they can do together as a middle school. So focusing on that unit of PBIS instead of just including them in the upper end of the elementary school. The other thing that I think will be beneficial is taking an existing room in the elementary school that has been a computer lab. We don't need it to be a computer lab anymore because our students are one-to-one. And so taking that room and creating an elementary school STEM or STEAM lab space that can be used for both hands-on enrichment of STEM activities by all the elementary school kids, but also can be used as sort of a swing classroom for tech and FACS teachers to come down to the elementary school and do those electives with kids, so that kids can have that experience in 6th grade. And also, so those are the kind of building block things that I think we can get working on now for the fall, so that our next class that's entering 6th grade and their parents feel appropriately transitioned, and so that the program feels substantially different. And so I really think that there's a lot to be said for, instead of making, I was just telling the education committee, instead of making them seem like they're a class without a country, actually supporting the 6th grade by making them one of the most consequential grades that we have, because they really are, and giving them the resources they need to really succeed and build that strong foundation that we want. So the too long didn't read summary of all that is, we're not going to move the 6th grade, but we are going to be working on the 6th grade program. And so, you know, because geography in itself is not a solution to this problem right now. Okay, so that is all I had to talk about tonight. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Next on our agenda is the presentation and approval of Board of Education meeting minutes. First, we have approved the minutes of the November 17, 2020 Board of Education meeting. Recommendation, the Board of Education accept the meeting minutes from the November 17th, 2020 meeting as submitted. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thanks, Shane. And a second?
A second.
Thanks, Teresa. All those in favor, sorry, any questions, comments, changes to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions?
Abstain. I wasn't here.
Deb, right, Deb wasn't present, so perfect. Okay, moving on to the standing committee reports. I believe that Buildings and Grounds might have a report this evening. Shane, do you have a report for us?
Yes. We went on December 3rd to tour the Mahonison Center for Advanced Technology. And just kind of look around the place and see how it's set up.
Okay. And is that part of what we're thinking about, things to include in our next building project, or something specific we were looking for when we were there?
I think possibly, you know, just to see how an updated building is kind of laid out. You know, there might be something instructive there for, you know, a future building project of our own.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And did you say the education committee met?
Yeah.
Deb, do you
Yeah.
have any-
Yeah. And Jim so kindly gave the update for the education committee meeting. So we were just discussing the sixth grade.
Gotcha. And I take it that's the committee's recommendation that we physically leave it where it is and work on those other.
Yeah. We, to Jim's point, we wanted to focus on what we can do now, where they are, and see what kind of improvements we can make with that. And then when we get into the next building updates and things like that, we may consider a move at that point if it makes sense. If things are working well, let's see where we get when we get there. But yes.
Okay, great.
We support his recommendation.
Excellent. Thank you. And then I'm sure the policy committee has a report. They're the hardest working, I think.
We did meet again. We accomplished all the 7,000s. We have the 8,000s to go. We have a meeting in January planned, and we should finish at that meeting and then have something to present to the board as a whole.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for chugging along in those policies.
No problem.
And next on the agenda are financial items. Next item is accepting the financial reports. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the appropriation status, budget transfer, revenue status, and treasurer's reports ending October 31st, 2020, as provided by the treasurer and recommended by the business official. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thanks, Betsy. And a second? Was that Diane? Thanks. Any questions or comments on those financial reports? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to accepting the claims auditor's report. Recommendation, the Board of Education accept the claims auditor's comments on general warrant A9 dated November 17th of 2020. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Deb, thank you. And a second?
I'll second. Oh. Tony.
Any questions or comments on general warrant A9? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. Moving on to adopt revised substitute pay rates after hours supervision. Recommendation, the Board of Education adopt the revised substitute and other pay rates schedule for detention, 2 categories, revised title to after contractual work hours supervision, and indicate the hourly rate of $17. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thanks, Shane. Do I have a second?
I'll
A
second.
second.
Diane, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. So this is just further revision of the revisions we made before, just cleaning them up a little bit, because we realized that the after contractual work hours had to be adjusted as well. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. Moving on to accept the 2020 to 2021 tax collectors report. Recommendation, the Board of Education accept the 2020-2021 tax collectors report as recommended by the business official. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Tony, thank you. Any questions or comments on the tax collectors report? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Moving on to accept the Whispering Pines preschool agreement. Recommendation, the Board of Education accept the Universal Pre-Kindergarten Program Agreement between Whispering Pines Preschool and the Duanesburg Central School District for the 2020 to 2021 school year, as recommended by the business official and superintendent. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Deb. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thanks, Teresa. Any questions or comments on the contract with Whispering Pines? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Next, we're moving on to other items, except the CSE minutes. We have a recommendation, the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the CSE meetings and their minutes from November 24th of 2020. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Ooh, that was like a tie. Let's go with Betsy. And how about a second? Teresa?
Sure.
We'll give it to you. Any questions or comments on the CSE recommendations? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, next we are moving on to the approving the 2021 to 2022 budget calendar. Recommendation, the Board of Education approve the 2021 to 2022 budget plan and calendar as recommended by the business official. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Diane. How about a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Tony. Any questions or comments? And I don't think there's many changes since we looked at it last month, but this is our official approval of it. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Moving on to our next item, accepting the MOU between Schenectady County Public Health Services and Duanesburg Central School District. Recommendation, the Board of Education accept the Memorandum of Understanding between Schenectady County Public Health Services and Duanesburg Central School District for services relating to administering and processing of the Abbott's Binax Now test for COVID-19 as recommended by the superintendent. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a
I'll
motion.
Thanks, Diane. How about a second?
I'll take the second.
Thanks, Deb. Any questions or comments on the agreement with Schenectady County Public Health Service? And this, I think, is how we are able to easily handle our testing. So we're grateful that our county is this much involved here.
That's
I have
correct.
a
This
question.
MOU serves as our
Oh, yeah.
order.
What was that, Jim?
This MOU serves as our doctor's order, kind of, that allows us to do that testing.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
Also, it's important for people to know that we were able to obtain the tests, the Binax Now tests. The state provides those at no cost.
Great. And Shane, did you have a question?
I think Jim just answered the question. It was whether there was any cost for the school district?
Just the labor of actually conducting the tests.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Good question. So all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on to personnel matters. The first item is accept resignation of B. Ryleman. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the resignation of Ben Ryleman, technology teacher, effective January 29th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Shane. How about a second?
I'll second.
Betsy, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to approving appointments. Recommendation, the Board of Education approve the following appointments as recommended by the superintendent and the elementary principal. ECA appointments are for the applicable 2020 to 2021 school year. All ECA appointments are employees at will, and the appointment at this time does not guarantee employment for the entire school season, term, or year. The salary for ECA clubs, activities, and athletic positions will be prorated based on the length of the season, term, or year. The operation of certain clubs and activities are subject to COVID-19 related restrictions. And we have, looks like a couple of individual appointments, and then of course a new BOCES substitute list, which we're always in need of new substitutes. Do we have a motion on these appointments?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Diane. And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Tony. Any questions or comments on the appointments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so next, the board is I am seeking a motion to move into executive session. And before I accept the motion, I just want to let everyone know that we will not be conducting any further business of the board when we come back from the executive session. So those of you that are attending the meeting, you'll know that we won't be coming back. This will effectively end the public portion of the meeting. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
I'll motion.
And I'm sorry, I should say it's to enter into collective bargaining and personnel issues both. Thanks, Deb. And a second?
I'll second.
Betsy, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we will go to our other link for executive session. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. How do I get out of here? Oh, there it is. I thought I had it.